Next year, 2025, is the International Year of Cooperatives. Thanks to a resolution put forth by the Permanent Mission of Mongolia, cooperatives large and small will have a tremendous opportunity to showcase their benefits. For credit unions, this means highlighting how credit unions promote, I'm quoting now from the resolution, credit unions and other cooperatives promote the fullest possible participation in the economic and social development of local communities, and how they fit into what the resolution calls, quote, the social and solidarity economy, end quote, which means that organizations are engaged in economic, social, and environmental activities to serve the collective and/or general interest, which are based on the principles of voluntary cooperation and the primacy of people and social purpose over capital in the distribution and use of surpluses and/or profits as well as assets. This is a provision not just effectively, but literally designed to emphasize and showcase what credit unions do and do well. It sounds to me like a good time to lean into sustainability as a core piece of credit union service missions. Here to give us a preview of the launch next month and highlights for the year are two experts in this space. First of those two, Andrew Allimadi, Officer and Lead on Cooperatives at the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs. I see Andrew. And Douglas O'Brien, President and CEO, National Cooperative Business Association and Board Director for the International Cooperative Alliance. Thank you. As you take your seats, gentlemen, I'll lead with this question. How can we learn more and get the most leverage out of 2025, the upcoming International Year of Cooperatives? Andrew, we'll start with you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I know my colleague, not my colleague, but somebody who is more knowledgeable about the whole International Year of Cooperatives was here yesterday. She was meant to be in this session, and I understand that she did speak a little bit yesterday about it. Your question was, excuse me, how do you...
It was very, very broad, but basically, what should we know? What should we know? How should we be thinking about the year on cooperatives, and what's the best approach to it?
Okay, so here at the United Nations, by the way, welcome to the International Day of the United Nations, which was today, and so it's good that we're having this discussion today, because the United Nations was, its charter basically starts by saying we, the peoples of the world, in order to save future generations from the scourge of war, etc., decided to form the United Nations. And, its whole purpose is peace and prosperity, and also, I guess, sustainability. So it's exactly what you were talking about. So what's the International Year of Cooperatives? It's also recognizing that in a world where, sustainable development is the main development goal of the United Nations at the moment, sustainable development goals will not be achieved come 2030, the way things are going. And in some cases, some goals are going in reverse. Poverty is increasing, health issues and climate catastrophe. So what do we need? We need to find a vector which unites people and cooperatives is their very DNA. Cooperatives are all about people, community, sustainability, and growing together. So declaring the International Year of Cooperatives is to give the United Nations and to give everybody in this cooperative space an opportunity to share the knowledge, to share the work that we do, and to hopefully increase the number of cooperatives come by the end of 2025, and also to create a pathway to keep growing towards 2030 and try and reverse some of the challenges that the world is facing today.
That's a great perspective. Thank you very much. So, Doug, and
I'd like to build right on what he said.
Please.
If that's okay.
Yeah, take it away.
Andrew, thank you. And I was going to begin with Happy United Nations Day, so I want to join that chorus. On behalf of I'm Doug O'Brien. I'm with the National Cooperative Business Association, CLUSA International, It's a mouthful. It is the umbrella group for all kinds of cooperatives, including, of course, credit unions here in the United States. And I also happen to sit on the board of the International Cooperative Alliance. So that's the global organization for all types of cooperatives and cooperative associations across the world. So I bring greetings and congratulations to the UN, who has proclaimed, just as Andrew said, and as the really impactful, if you didn't have a chance to listen closely to the words from the proclamation, they are really compelling. I mean, what happened just about a year ago was the 193 nations that comprise the United Nations, they passed a resolution proclaiming 2025 International Year of the Co-ops. The reason they did it, just as Andrew said, is because they realize, these leaders of nations, these representatives of national governments realize that one of the best strategies to advance social and economic goals is the cooperative business model. And so they put some of their weight, some of their political capital and heft behind this proclamation for, as I think about it, for two reasons. One is so more people know about cooperatives, and the second is so that nations improve the policy environment so that people can use cooperatives to solve more problems. Just real briefly, when we think about, a couple examples in the past on what has happened when people know about cooperatives and when a country creates a set of laws that support people to use cooperatives. Here in the United States, of course, that's what I am most familiar with. In 1930, there were about 10% of the people who lived in rural America who had access to electricity, while over 90% of the people in cities had access to electricity. It was a conundrum, a real policy conundrum, on how to get that distribution and infrastructure out to rural people. And in fact, the early part of the administration for Franklin Delano Roosevelt, they created some new subsidies for the investor-owned utilities to take the subsidy and go out and build it out in rural. And in those investor-owned utilities, they got their pencils out and they're like, nope, not enough money, we're not interested. Well, by this time, some people knew about cooperatives, and they were the farmers in rural America. They knew about cooperatives, and they knew that if they partnered with the government, that they could solve this problem. Fast forward one generation, 90% of rural people had access to electricity. It doesn't happen without cooperatives. It doesn't happen without a good set of policies that people can use to use cooperatives. And that, to me, that's what 2025 International Year of the Co-ops is all about, is bringing those two things together. And I'll just finish and mention countries all over the world are planning a number of different initiatives to really leverage this opportunity, this gift that the UN gave us. Here in the United States, we're creating, I'll make it short, but we're creating a new set of compelling reports, and in fact a toolkit that people in the U.S., cooperative associations, credit unions, other cooperatives can use to really amplify this opportunity for public awareness and advocacy. Back to you. No.
Countries create a plan of how to use the international cooperatives like you are doing in the United States, and share it globally so that it can be informative for everybody else.
Yeah.
That's great. My notes tell me that you have a mentee for the room.
No,
it did not happen.
No.
Okay.
Your
Well,
notes don't say that.
so much for notes. Well, my notes say it, but it doesn't mean that it's right. This is so good. Are there? I know this is a sort of a lightning round peek at the future, sort of a panel. We do have a little bit of time in case the idea of an International Year of Cooperatives generally has spurred even a feeling maybe you'd like to share with the panelists. Either you're attending remotely, if there's a question in the room.
If I might.
Of course.
No, we don't have Minty. I'm going to build. right what you're talking about. And that's, I think both Andrew and I would be very interested in people's thoughts on how can, now I'll take it from the position of a cooperative association, or for that matter, how can a cooperative, including a credit union, what's the best thing that you think that they could do to really take advantage of the International Year of the Co-op? So, like, for instance, what does NCBA CLUSA need to do to help the cooperative community in the U.S. really take advantage of this? I'd be really interested in that, or other ideas.
Flip the script. The
Flip the
panelist
script, yeah.
asks the room a question.
I mean, if I may, if it's all right. I know for us, I think in earlier conversations, I mean, throughout this entire event, I think we've heard credit unions talk about their kind of connection to their community. It's actually one of the core pillars of this whole group of United in Sustainability. But underneath that, there was almost a disconnect between the awareness, you kind of said it a little bit, the awareness that credit unions are cooperative, are not-for-profit, whose primary focus is not the bottom line of some disassociated shareholder, but is actually interested in the community. They're serving the memberships who are actually part owners of the institution. I would think if that's something, this education of broadly, that's probably beyond any single credit union to describe, hey, yeah, credit union, it comes from this term, blah, 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 but we really are this. I think that might be something, just awareness of this model, of these types of entities in your community that consumers may be able to take advantage of and become members of a different type of institution with a different type of priority. That's at least my thought.
Like you just said, the public awareness is key. And we know, in this amazing set of credit union leaders here, that not all members of credit unions actually understand that they're part of this cooperative ecosystem. This is a great year to lift that up for them.
I don't have a statistic in front of me, but it did come up in a previous panel. It's not, I mean, the problem you've just identified, that's significant. My money's at a credit union, but I don't know what it means that I'm a part of a movement when I do that. But the other thing that came up in a different panel yesterday is the universe of people who are probably going to be like pushing on an open door, naturally inclined to want to put their money with a not-for-profit cooperative, but have no idea that such things exist.
Right.
And that would be an area where, you probably can't, to the point that was made in the last session, you're not going to boil the ocean in a single year. But if we could really do one thing to make a big push on moving a lot of things in the right direction, that awareness of the fact that these things are already out there would be a huge thing in year one. Is there a question?
Yeah, it was already mentioned in the introduction, I think, by you, Douglas, but anything that can help push the law along to get regulations that then help us do the right thing as a movement would be fantastic. So pushing the NCUA to continue with its taking sustainability seriously, all that kind of thing. Still waiting, but hopefully.
Thank you.
They collected comments last year. That's the beginning of a rulemaking process. So we'll see. We live in hope.
Different countries are in different situations regarding regulation, but as one of the biggest cooperatives in the world, Mondragon always they like to say that they started without any regulation. They started during a dictatorship, and they've grown to be one of the biggest cooperatives in the world. So community action is always possible, and from the United Nations, we are going to be carrying out some also public information activities, and we have a logo for the International Year, which will be available at, it's actually now available at copac.coop, the Committee for the Promotion and Advancement of Cooperatives. They have a website which already has the logo and how you can use it, and how perhaps with events that you're organizing within your communities, if you have the logo, also to talk about the fact that it's an International Year of Cooperatives, can help you also talk about the fact that you are cooperatives.
That's copac.org.
No,
Okay.
no, .coop, sorry. It's COPA, it's Copac.
COPAC dot.
Co-op.
Yeah.
Got it.
Which
Okay.
gives me the opening to talk a little bit about the .coop domain. So there's a domain that's about 23 years old that many credit unions have, actually. And it's the part of the digital identity.
See, here you go. It's a good thing there's an International Year Cooperatives, because I didn't know that.
All right, public awareness already increasing. Yeah.
I see a question at the back of the room.
I was going to say youth-focused content. Yes, and really zeroing in on getting that market and awareness to them, not only to be part of cooperatives, but also to maybe even start their own, and yeah.
Yeah, no, youth education of the rising generation is absolutely key, and it's something that we always. It's sort of obvious, but we have to be very deliberate about it. It's one of the reasons why there's one of the 7 principles, right? Education and training is we have to continually teach the next generation, and we also have to lift up, and it's another, I think, opportunity around 2025. Those who are members of cooperatives and the staff of cooperatives. You know, for cooperatives particularly who've been around for a while, they can become complacent in embracing and really lifting up their cooperative identity. 2025 is a year for them to kind of step forward and really remind people.
And if I can just briefly mention one other principle, which is cooperation amongst cooperatives, and to expand that cooperation globally. Because, you know, there are some countries who are in stronger capacity to help cooperatives in other parts of the world.
We're developing tongue twisters, if nothing else. Collaboration and cooperation among cooperatives, the power of partnerships. Yeah, I could go and go and go. Any other questions? Yeah, Andrea.
Segue to a point I'd like to ask, and I think it might be impossible. But like climate, cooperatives is a bit of a complex concept. It's not a soundbite, but you know, to reach the youth, the TikTok mind, the Instagram viewers, we need a soundbite that's not 7 principles. And so, yeah, if you could crack the code on that, that would be awesome.
Anything in the chat that we see? Did we get all the comments from the room? I know the room is brimming. Yeah, we got one in the comments there.
Comment. Interesting conversation regarding the upcoming International Year of the Cooperatives in 2025. Creating more cooperatives will definitely help address the social and economic environmental issues. So the chat is just generally agreeing for the role the cooperatives can play.
It's not the simplest thing in the world to stand one up, though. If somebody is out there with an idea, maybe some support in the how that happens. You know, turn an idea into reality. That way.
That's right. I mean, I know time's of the essence. It's relatively harder to start a cooperative because democracy is not an easy thing, and cooperatives they're a democratic business. But once they're started, the literature will show you they are more resilient because there is much more investment, social investment, community investment into its success, and they realize that the outcomes are better. So it's worth the investment. And here in the United States, if you look at cooperatives that have gone to scale, credit unions, rural electric cooperatives, farmer cooperatives, many times part of that, the magic that started hundreds or thousands of those cooperatives was investment by the public sector in helping people establish and do that really hard work. So that's another thing. It's like, look, if we're looking for cooperatives to solve challenges relative to climate, challenges relative to care economy, or other major challenges, then I think we do need to think about good policy and good support from the public sector as well.
Strength and unity.
Yes. All these words.
One more thought.
But we were just discussing, because this is at UNFCU, we're very fortunate to have access to lots of UN agencies, UN expertise. At our events, we have UNEP, I think we had UN Women in my supplier session. is one of the things we often hear is trying to get in the U.S. and our financial cooperatives, having them to engage more with some of the resources that the UN makes available. Often they're larger financial institutions, especially we're coming from financial spaces, financial cooperatives here, are often the ones really engaging, maybe the ones who are most connected or most outreached. Is this something the UN is thinking about making more accessible, some of the programs and resources that are actually generally free often, but maybe just lack awareness, or maybe feeling that some of the statements or requirements may be a higher ask, because cooperatives tend to be powerful, but maybe less resourced than, for-profit financial space, of course, for-profit financial institutions. Is that a focus of in the year?
With the financial institutions, not so much. With the financial institutions, usually we have the Global Compact, which is particularly geared towards working with financial institutions and trying to get some of the cooperative values or sustainability issues into the Global Compact where they work. But in general, it's kind of harder to work with the big financial institutions for us. So we will actually look to you, who perhaps have more access to the financial sector
Often we are trying to promote some of these resources that the UN does make available, and any support in helping us promote these tools into the cooperative space would be fantastic for us as well.
Okay.
All right, in the interest of time, I know we could go on, but let's have a round of applause, please, for Andrew and Doug. The Year of Cooperatives. Of course you can. You came from Washington, D.C.
But I'm not a government official. One is, I don't know how I didn't say it, but in the last week of November in New Delhi, India, the formal launch of the International Year of the Co-ops that will be held. And it's not too late to get your visa, but it's almost too late. But please come join the global cooperative community at this an amazing event in New Delhi. The second thing I want to say is just thank you to everybody here. I got to attend some of it. I got to see and I want to thank the people who are choosing to be part of this summit. Are obviously the kind of people who are really trying to make a difference in their community, trying to do some really hard things, because stuff isn't designed to solve for the climate crisis. And it takes social entrepreneurs and leaders like you leveraging your cooperative identity, your credit union, but just individually. This doesn't happen without leaders, that are sitting here, that are watching out there. So I want to thank everybody for doing that too. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, give yourselves a round of applause and another round of applause for Doug and Andrew. The Year of Cooperatives, really a wonderful cap for our first two-day summit.